Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Teddi Mellencamp reveals medical oversight amid cancer battle. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fans have been following Teddi Mellencamp's health journey over the past few years. Recently, the star opened up about an oversight early on that she feels greatly impacted her later health. Using her story, Teddi also shared how she feels people should act when dealing with their own health struggles. Teddi is the daughter of musician John Mellencamp. For many, she is best known for appearing on 3 seasons of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, from 2017 to 2020. Back in 2022, Teddi shared that she had been diagnosed with stage 2 melanoma, a type of skin cancer. Later, in 2025, in addition to having brain tumors removed, she shared her melanoma had progressed to stage 4. Teddi is the daughter of musician John Mellencamp. For many, she is best known for appearing on 3 seasons of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, from 2017 to 2020. Back in 2022, Teddi shared that she had been diagnosed with stage 2 melanoma, a type of skin cancer. Later, in 2025, in addition to having brain tumors removed, she shared her melanoma had progressed to stage 4. Speaking with Glamour, Teddi recently talked about an oversight made by medical professionals during the early stages of monitoring her condition. She noted this happened in spite of her making regular health visits. As Teddi shared, when you go to a doctor, you just assume that's it. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Looking back, she felt it was important to do her research amid the doctor visits. She shared, at first, I didn't even really do the research on melanoma because I didn't want to know all of the bad things. Teddi then touched on how medical professionals overlooked symptoms before her cancer reached stage 4. She shared, there's a difference between self-diagnosing yourself and being an advocate for your own health. I never really thought about it because I was like, I go to a doctor every 3 months. Why wouldn't they get me checked? Teddi's highest stage melanoma was a stage 1 lesion found in her shoulder. As her previous diagnoses hadn't gone past stage 1, doctors initially felt full body scans weren't necessary. Looking back, however, she feels like this kept doctors from realizing her melanoma was spreading. Teddi shared, when I finally followed up on it, they were like, we didn't do the scans, because you didn't have anything above a stage 1 on your body. But look what happened. The Real Housewives star wanted to use her story to help advocate for people taking charge in their own healthcare journeys. She shared, it's really being an advocate for yourself and your health if you're not feeling good. As fans know, Teddi has also used social media to share her story with fans. In addition to sharing her health journey, she also touched on the emotional turmoil it has had on her. In a recent post, where she shared her hair regrowing, Teddi shared, cancer comes with so many emotions, anger, sadness, loneliness. And while I feel grateful that immunotherapy is saving my life, I feel like I live in a fog, and I can't help but beat myself up on all of the ways I am falling short. I just desperately want to be back to my usual self. Have you been following Teddi Mellencamp's story on social media? Make sure you come back for all the latest reality TV and celebrity news. Under the bright palm-shadowed skies of Los Angeles, Teddi Mellencamp once stepped into every day with the rhythmic cadence of fitness alarms, protein shakes, podcast tapings, and the quiet satisfaction of checking another item off her meticulously organized list. A brush with life-altering illness was never on the schedule, yet it arrived like an unexpected gust cutting through Southern California sunlight. Her skin cancer journey, once documented in fragmented social media updates, had always been shadowed by a deeper truth. For months, she'd been walking around with something doctors had seen but not seen, something logged but not handled. A medical oversight. A detail lost in the shuffle of lab results, appointments, and assumptions. And it took clawing persistence, intuition, and an unsettling feeling in her own bones to uncover it. Now Teddi was ready to talk about that moment, when faith in the system cracked, and she realized that ultimately, her body's fate rested in her own hands far more than she'd imagined. It began with what should have been routine, a mole removal. The biopsy was sent off, the results filed. Weeks passed. No phone call. No sense of urgency. Life continued as if the moment never mattered, except in the back of Teddy's mind, something tugged. She'd learned to trust her instincts. After all, health had been her world long before Real Housewives of Beverly Hills magnified it for millions. Still, she didn't want to be dramatic. She was a mother, a wife, a woman who prided herself on not catastrophizing. But sometimes the whispers of fear are wiser than logic. A second appointment revealed the truth. The biopsy, initially dismissed, was more serious. The spot should have been flagged. The cancer had already begun its quiet spread beneath the surface. It wasn't an explosion, just a persistent creep. And when she heard the words "no one wants melanoma," she felt both vindicated and betrayed. How could something so important slip through the cracks? The shock didn't arrive like a tidal wave. It came subtly, with a strange stillness. Teddi, who usually filled silence with movement, sat uncharacteristically still. The doctor's voice became fragments: treatment, depth, further scans, all floating disconnectedly as she tried to piece them back together. Later, alone in her car, she stared at the steering wheel as if it suddenly belonged to a stranger. A rush of what-ifs drowned her thoughts, but one idea rose above all others: if she hadn't followed up, where would she be? The world first met Teddi as a housewife, opinionated and direct, always ready to defend her beliefs. Yet, cancer rewrote her vocabulary. Strength wasn't loud anymore, it was quiet and deliberate. It was long nights reading medical journals she barely understood. It was learning to be both patient and warrior. It was telling her children pieces of the truth without loading them with fear. She transformed her podcast mic into a lifeline, letting listeners travel with her through appointments, treatment plans, surgeries, and vulnerability. She revealed the oversight not to blame but to warn: trust your instincts, ask every question, and never assume the system catches everything. Because sometimes, it doesn't. Her days became measured differently. Time wasn't blocked by workouts or travel, but by scans, MRI, PET, ultrasound waiting rooms that always smelled the same, a mix of disinfectant and apprehension. She stopped trying to tidy her fear. She let it sit beside her, acknowledging its place. There were moments that gutted her unexpectedly: seeing her children's backpacks by the door, smelling her husband Edwin's cologne in an empty room, watching the sun dip beneath the horizon and wondering how many sunsets she'd still get to see. Still, she was determined that cancer wouldn't steal her life's narrative. She allowed herself grace. She allowed herself anger. She allowed herself tears in the shower where the water drowned the sound of fear. And eventually, she felt something new growing beneath the fear: resolve. If cancer wanted a fight, it would get one. During a late-stage consultation, the surgeon reviewed images with an intensity that only heightened her anxiety. The melanoma had traveled deeper than expected. Another procedure was necessary. There would be stitches, scars. She didn't care. Vanity seemed fictional now, survival was the only real currency. In the recovery room after surgery, she woke to a fog of anesthesia and a flood of clarity. Her body had been sliced open. Something unwelcome had been removed. She felt simultaneously ruined and renewed. She prayed not for guarantees, but for time. Cancer treatment rarely moves in straight lines. There were encouraging test results followed by unsettling scans. Hope and fear wove around each other daily. But through it all, Teddi clung to transparency with almost militant commitment. If she had to walk through this storm, she wanted others to walk through it wiser. She replayed the oversight again and again, not as trauma, but as teaching. A box had been checked somewhere. A result had been schemed, overlooked. A call had never been made. It was no one's fault and everyone's fault. Healthcare is human, she realized. Which means healthcare can fail, and because it can fail, we must advocate for ourselves relentlessly. Months into treatment, Teddi stood at the edge of her backyard, barefoot on cool stone, morning air washing her lungs clean. She inhaled, letting silence answer questions she couldn't see. The jacaranda trees swayed above her like a gentle reminder that life keeps moving whether we're ready or not. She wasn't cured, not yet. Perhaps not ever. But she was alive. And that truth felt like a roaring triumph. She began journaling again, pages filled with gratitude, fury, joy, and dread, sometimes all in a single paragraph. She started meeting others facing melanoma, sharing tears, laughter, scars. She listened to stories where oversight had cost lives, others where early detection saved them. Each one folded into her mission: awareness without fear, empowerment without arrogance. Some days, she still waited for the other shoe to drop. Cancer survivors live between checkups like travelers waiting for boarding calls, living, but always slightly packed. Yet Teddi moved forward. She rebalanced her work, made room for rest, and deepened her relationships. She learned that asking for help wasn't weakness, it was grace. On a podcast episode months later, Teddi finally shared the full story publicly. Her voice didn't shake. She spoke with grounded honesty, not bitterness. She didn't vilify the doctors, she simply told the truth. The oversight happened. It changed everything. Listeners flooded her messages with their own stories: the missed diagnoses, the doctors who brushed aside concerns, the lucky catches, the devastating losses. Her vulnerability had opened a vein. And in that space, she found purpose, pushing people to advocate fiercely, to never ignore intuition, to know that self-awareness is not anxiety, it's survival. Teddi didn't want applause. She wanted lives saved. Today, she carries the scar, both literal and emotional. Some mornings she traces it absent-mindedly, marveling at how such a small mark could represent both the worst and best chapters of her life. The oversight could have stolen her future, instead, it sharpened it. She sees life not as a marathon to dominate, but as a dance, messy, unpredictable, and precious. Her battle continues, but fear no longer leads. She is guided instead by fierce self-advocacy, gratitude, and an unwavering commitment to telling her story so others might catch what she nearly missed. And in her quietest moments, Teddi Mellencamp breathes in the world like a newfound friend, thankful not just to be alive but to be awake.